Sam Lewis spent the evening playing chess at his friend's house. Well, it was about midnight when they finished their game, and he went ahead and started home. Outside, it was quite icy, and it was so cold, and it was quite like a grave. Now, as he came around a turn in the road, he was quite surprised to see a woman there walking ahead of him. She was carrying a big old basket covered with white cloth, and when he caught up to her, he looked to see who it was, but she was so bundled up against the cold, well, it was really hard to see her face. "Good evening," Sam said. "What brings you out so late?" Oh, she didn't even answer. Then he said, "May I carry your basket for you?" She handed it to him, and from under the cloth, a small voice said, "That's very nice of you." It was followed by wild laughter. Sam was so startled that he dropped the basket and out rolled a woman's head. Well, he looked at the head, and he stared at the woman. "Why, well, that's your head!" he cried, and he started to run. The woman and her head began to chase him. Now soon that head caught up to him, and it bounded into the air, and it sunk its teeth into his left leg. Oh, Sam, he screamed in pain, and he ran faster. But the woman and her head, it stayed right behind him, no matter how fast he run. Now soon the head had leaped up into the air again and bit into his other leg. And then they were gone. Somebody was stealing the meat that Jed Smith kept in his smokehouse. Every day a ham or some bacon or something else went missing. Finally, Jed decided he had to put a stop to it. Now, one evening he hid in the smokehouse, and he had his rifle with him, and he waited for that thief. He didn't have to wait long, for soon a black she-cat slunk in. She was the biggest cat that Jed had ever seen. And when she jumped up and pulled down a ham hanging from the ceiling, why, Jed, he grabbed up his rifle and he turned on the lights. But instead of running away, why, danged if that cat didn't jump at him. He fired. He shot off one of its paws. Jed was sure he heard a woman scream right after his gun went off, but well, the cat, it began tearing all around the room, and it was spitting and yowling. And then the cat ran up the chimney and was gone. Dang. Jed, he stared at the cat's paw. Only it wasn't a cat's paw anymore. What was a woman's foot laying there wriggling around on the floor? All shot up and bloody and wiggling around. So, that's a witch that's been doing all that, he told himself. Just then, one of Jed's neighbors, a fella named Burdock, well, he came racing down the road to get a doctor. His wife's foot had been shot in an accident, he said. And she's bleeding pretty bad, he added. Now the doctor, he got to her barely in the nick of time. People were there when it happened and said she was just a spitting and a yowling like a cat. Go figure. Does give one pause. 3 old men shared a room at the nursing home. Their room had only one window, but for them it was the only link to the real world. Ted Conklin, who had been there the longest, had the bed next to the window. When Ted died, the man in the next bed, George Best, why, he took Ted's place, and, well, the third man, Richard Green, he took George's bed. Now, despite his illness, George, he was a cheerful man who spent his days describing the sights that he could see from his bed. Pretty girls, a policeman on horseback, a traffic jam, a pizza parlor, a fire station, and a whole bunch of other scenes of life outside. Richard, he loved to listen to George. But the more George talked about life on the outside, why, the more Richard wanted to see it for himself. Yet he knew that only when George died would he get his chance. He wanted to look out that window so badly. One day, he decided to kill George. He wanted that window view so bad. What difference would it make anyhow? George had a bad heart. If he had an attack during the night and the nurse couldn't get to him right away, why, well, he had pills that he could take. They were glycerin pills, I think they're called. He kept them in a bottle on the top cabinet between his bed and Richard's, and all Richard had to do was to knock that bottle onto the floor where George couldn't reach it. Now, a few nights later, George died just as Richard had planned that he would. And the next morning, Richard found himself. It was time to move the bed, his bed, by the window. Now he would get to see for himself all those things outside that George had described. Now, after the nurses had left, Richard turned to the window and he opened his eyes and looked out. And all he could see was a brick wall.